شكرا لكم على حضوركم الليلة للمحاضرة الأولى للأستاذ توماس ميلو المتخصص بالخطوط العربية وتقنياتها. الأستاذ ميلو لغوي ومتخصص في برمجة وتقنيات الخطوط، ويعمل في هذا المجال منذ أكثر من 40 سنة أو حولها، وهو مؤسس شركة ديكوتايب للخطوط، وهي من أوائل الشركات التي صممت الخطوط العربية منذ بدايات نشأة رقمنة الخطوط. وله منشورات عديدة، دراسات محكمة وعلمية حول موضوع التقنيات الخط، وأيضاً له جوائز في هذا المجال. لديه جائزة من منظمة يونيكود العالمية، ولديه جائزة من منظمة بيتر كارو للإبداع في تطوير الخطوط الرقمية. وهو أيضاً حائز على جائزة نوبل مع مجموعة. It was with a group, right? Not with yourself, yeah. The Nobel Prize, yeah. للسلام في 1988. وبالتالي لديه سيرة حافلة. وأيضا لو دخلنا إلى حياته الشخصية, it's okay if I can mention your trucking experience. Your trucking experience. The truck drive. Yeah.
Yes.
The truck driving experience and going around the world.
Yeah. I've done it before.
باختصار الرجل لديه تجربة إنسانية طويلة حافلة جدا، يعني سواء من الناحية العلمية أو الناحية الإنسانية أو أيضا في القضايا التقنية. ومسألة يعني رقمنة الخطوط العربية من المسائل الحيوية التي يعني ينبغي الاهتمام بها، خصوصاً أن الخط العربي كما سيبين لنا الأستاذ توماس يواجه تحديات كبيرة في العالم الرقمي بسبب القيود التي تفرضها شركات التقنية على هذا الأمر. والسبب ربما الأعمق بسبب عدم مطالبة العرب أنفسهم لتطوير تقنيات الخط الرقمي بالطريقة التي تتناسب مع تعقيدات وجماليات الخط العربي. يعني كما سيبين الأستاذ توماس، مسألة الاتصال الحضاري، يعني سواء بيننا وبين تراثنا الماضي المخطوط والمكتوب، أو التواصل الحضاري بين العرب أنفسهم أو مع الشعوب الأخرى، ترتبط ارتباط وثيق بمسألة الرقمنة، لأن التواصل الآن أصبح عبر الوسائل الرقمية. فكيفية ترقيم الخط العربي تنعكس انعكاس مباشر على واقعنا الحضاري اليوم وفي المستقبل. ولهذا يشرفنا الأستاذ توماس بالحضور الأمسية هذا ليشرح لنا بعض التحديات الحضارية الناشئة عن مسألة رقمنة الخط العربي. وبداية يعني قبل أن ندخل في المحاضرة توماس، الآن سأنقل إلى الإنجليزي للحوار معه. So Thomas, welcome and thank you for being here. It's a pleasure and a privilege to have you. I'd like to start with a general question, which is how you came about. I mean, your personal journey towards Arabic script, if just as a background story before we enter before we go into the actual presentation.
Well, our Arabic script is an intriguing issue, and when I started studying Arabic, I had a difficulty finding coherent statements about it. Things were described in terms like ligatures, which don't belong in script. Ligatures are a mechanical thing. And it's never explained why there was a ligature. They simply told you this is a ligature. And from there, I gradually borrowed concepts from Slavic linguistic studies to find answers to these questions, and eventually that led to
So you started studying Slavic before?
Well, my itinerary into Arabic is a bit odd, because I studied Slavic languages in the context of which I was able to read in Russian literature about Central Asian Russian colonies, the Turkic populations, to the point that I decided to change my major into Turkic studies. And when I applied at the institute, I was told, learn Arabic first. And I did that, and when I came back, they were actually happy that I was there because you need Russian. But it is also a fact that all these Central Asian Turkic languages, and of course Ottoman Turkish, are written in Arabic script. And what gradually dawned on me is that there was also a typographical issue going on in the Ottoman Empire, and I realized slowly that typography is actually information technology. And today it is an obvious case that information technology is part of power. And in those days, the Ottomans also realized that, and it was a state operation. They were actually military operations, the printing houses in the Ottoman Empire.
So it's a key word, and maybe we can come back to it in the Q&A session. You know, typography is information technology.
Sorry,
You said, you know, typography is information technology.
Typography is information technology.
Yeah, and you know, so if you can elaborate on this concept either now or maybe through the presentation, because I think it encapsulates a lot of what you speak about.
The whole role of information technology today is only understood as digital technology. But once we have it, it is mainly used for script. That's the visual part of it. And with hindsight, retroactively, you have to conclude that typography with metal was also information technology. That's what I'm trying to say.
Okay, great, thank you. So we can go into the...
Okay, I'll just walk around a bit to get away from the spotlights.
Okay, whatever.
So, Your Highnesses, Your Excellencies, and esteemed public, I have here a couple of, I try to visualize my understanding of Arabic script. So the title is in Arabic, Al-Hifaz ala Turas al-Adab al-Arabi fi Itar al-Asr al-Raqmi, in the context of the digital age. What I was just saying about information technology, I came across this statement on the internet. In the early stages of automobiles, you can see they basically just took the design for a horse-drawn carriage and replaced the horse with a mechanical engine. Sometimes this kind of design is intentional, but it's often because our creativity is limited by what we already know. And it struck me because, just to visualize the argument, these are automobiles that look like horse-drawn carts. Because it takes a while for the human mind to really understand what the innovation implies. And this is exactly the same for typography. Typography is the mechanical reproduction of script. And today we have digital technology, but we don't realize that we do not have to stick to a method that was valid in the 15th century, which was using metal. Like, for instance, this lam alif is actually a ligature. And why is it a ligature? The lam and the alif cannot be separated. It's one piece of metal. Now, coming back to the main theme, that this was just a teaser to give you an idea where I'm going. We're talking about the power of Arabic literature. And in this context, I remember that in 2002, there was a report by the Arab Human Development Report 2002 that observes that there are more translations into Spanish every year than there have been into Arabic over the last millennium. And whether this is accurate remains to be seen, but the thing is, it led to initiatives to translate into Arabic. And now coming into the theme of yesterday's conversation, نقل العلوم من العرب إلى العرب, spreading knowledge from Arab to Arab. But actually, what caused this report caused something different. نقل العلوم من الغرب إلى العرب. And it's just one dot difference, but it means the spreading of knowledge from the West to the Arabs, which, if the report is true, is adding insult to injury. So that brought, and by the way, how sure are they that they can do it? Because this is a colleague of us in Cairo who prepared an article on a Windows machine. Then he gave his PowerPoint presentation to the organizers on a Macintosh, and what he was talking about is the factors that influence calligraphy. So with a little, you can still see fenni, they are artistic, on top. And then in the middle, in white, fendel khat. On the right, it says tu tarihi. And on the left, it says lughawi. And at the bottom, it says athari. This is Western technology, meta-visualized. This was in Baltimore. It was an effort to express a respect for multiple cultures. And through the internet, the Arabic text was translated and sent back. And this is in the streets of Baltimore. And for me, this is very simple. It's done probably in InDesign, and they forgot to turn on the world already paragraph composer because they think that the rest of the world doesn't need Arabic. And if you turn it on, all of a sudden the Arabic shapes correctly. Now, this is an image from a popular American movie. It's an imaginary airline, Somalia Sama Al Hawa, imaginary airline, but even that they didn't print. And actually, if this level of reliability would be the standard in the aeronautical industry, there would be no survivors. And actually, this is taken during a flight on an aircraft, not so long ago. This is Ketem Selem Sil. They probably mean Liselemtik. It's actual, this is in every chair in an airplane. And that's because the whole technology is English biased. So it's a bit overconfident to think that you can produce translations from other cultures into Arabic if you haven't even prepared yourself for the job. So instead, and this falls in line with the main thrust of this conference, why don't you unlock the Arabic literature itself? And in this context, with a couple of friends, I formulated the Arabic Literary Heritage Project, and here you see again, نقل العلوم من العرب إلى العرب. That idea occurred to us in 2003, and together with Larry Conrad and Joseph Merri, we submitted, well, actually it was spotted by the Economic Forum, but the thoughts that went into it, the considerations. The Arabic literary heritage amounts to millions of books written since 750 Common Era. Many of them, the majority of them, haven't even been reproduced. The vast majority of these works remains unknown to the public and impossible to acquire. In the world of Arabic publishing, there are no affordable, high-quality books that give access to the Arabic literary heritage. The Arabic Literary Heritage Project plans to prepare key classics of Arabic literature for hard copy publication and digital circulation via the internet. So that's the aspiration. The goal, the primary target audience is the literate Arab public who will read the original texts, including the introduction and critical apparatus in Arabic script, which means you sometimes have to reconstruct the correct version of the text on the basis of various manuscript transmissions. You have to compare them, spot flaws and correct them, and explain to the audience that you made a change in the text because you think there was an error. The secondary target audience is the readership in Western nations who will read the texts in dual script translations. In this way, a truly international audience will be reached. And now, one of the considerations we had, Arabic script. It's essential to achieve a perfectly harmonious balance between the demands of the Arabic language and technology. And that's why I gave the aircraft industry introduction. It's not there. So this becomes the focus of this evening's presentation. And as I already referred to, it was spotted, this idea, and it was submitted to the World Economic Forum, and I recently retrieved it in the archive of the World Bank. The Arabic Literary Heritage Trust was the idea to create the funding for doing these projects. The Amsterdam-based Decotype, well, it's a long text, but the essence of the text is here, in bold, approved by the C100 in Davos in 2005. And the man who spotted it and submitted this is Alistair MacDonald-Radcliffe. So the idea was launched and eventually it caught on, and another group of people realized it, but they invited me in to help them with exactly the technical aspect. So now you get نقل العلوم من العرب إلى العرب. But we also included an Arabic edition. So you have نقل العلوم من العرب للغرب. And now we have spun around the whole approach. The Library of Arabic Literature. And what does it look like? And this is one of the things that we are proud of. The Roca writing on the cover is actually a computer program that can do this. What is, of course, an issue is that the barcode is usually on the back of a book. So to consider the Arabic as the footnote to the English, which is a design concept that still needs to be developed. How do you create books that are Arabic and English and that are equivalent? But that's the next, these are all wishes how to improve this. I'm giving you some visual examples of how this proceeds. This is interesting. You see how the dynamics of Arabic script are reproduced with computer software. And here the text, for instance. On this page, you have prose, you have poetry, and you have Quran quotations. And each category of text requires a different treatment. This is how books were made, this is how manuscripts work, and we strive to maintain this in the digital age. Here is another example in close-up. It's actually the same text in close-up. Now here is an interesting case. I'm taking out some of the words. These shapes are the logical outcome of the rule system of the Naskh script. And you know what they would look like in typography. And we have also typography, but our typography is a computer model of the script as we observed it over centuries. Another case, I'm just showing some of these pages. I love the distichs, the Arabic poetry, how it is using features of the script to get the balance right. And then highlighting just one word. This is the logical outcome of the rule system. And then a last example. Oh, well, these examples come later. The thing is, how were we able to produce a computer model of Arabic that can do this? And I'm describing it as a linguistic approach. And the first question you would get, why bother? Because everything is well documented. We have these fantastic Meshk albums where all the details of the scripts are given. And here you have two examples of this is a page taken from one of the great Ottoman calligraphers, the Nasr style. But if you start studying it with the purpose of gleaning all the information from it that you need to reproduce it as a computer program, you miss the lam. So on the right page, you move from the fa initial to the kaf initial, and then the next page has mim initial. Lam initial is missing. This is an example of by Halim Effendi, an Ottoman calligrapher. And it's only groups of 2 letters. And this is structural. I have here two more, the famous Mustafa Izzet Effendi and Shauki Effendi, and again they move from kaf to lam, no, from kaf to mim, and they skip the lam. And now you would wonder, maybe the lam is automatically derived from the information that you get from the kaf. For instance, here's the kaf, and this gives me the information to create the lam. Well, that's not true. You really need the lam as well. In a later development of this tradition, you have the Iraqi calligrapher, Hashim Muhammad al-Khattat al-Baghdadi, and interestingly, he breaks away from this paradigm. He uses groups of 4 letters. He doesn't give the dots because he sees them as abstractions. So the first example could be anything, but there's 2 denticles, a kaf and a ra, and he moves to the kaf. The lam is included, and he has modern digraphs. So you get more information. It's very didactic. Now, an intermezzo, why would I use linguistic concepts to deal with a script? Well, there are similarities. The rules are intuitive. Calligraphers who write Nasr usually write it without errors, but they cannot formulate in a mathematical way why they do it and when. The same is true for speech. I can speak my own language, Dutch, without errors, but I cannot explain why I'm doing it in a certain way. I have to sit down and formulate rules, try to observe. The same is true for Lehjat Lubnan, or Darij al-Maghrabiya. They are very regular, but nobody takes the trouble to spell it out. But there are communication protocols because the receiver and the sender understand each other, so there must be a system. And sometimes the system is irrational. Think of the English past tenses. They are regular, irregular, doesn't matter. If you make errors against them, you are still understood. And the same can happen in Arabic. If you have a certain way of shaping the connections and break the rules, you can still be understood. And so there's a certain tolerance for deviation. These are some analogies between script and language. And that's why I chose this approach. Then applying linguistic concepts, again another intermezzo. We think of ourselves as logical beings capable of observation and communication. Well, if you look at this, can you see the concentric circles? I can't. They are there, and I'll help you. Your mind is systematically derailed. You cannot see these circles. You cannot. And the same happens with repetition of the same shape. This is a military rank. It's a second lieutenant. But I also give you the Roman numeral 1. 2, this is a first lieutenant. This is a captain. This is a major, and it becomes problematic. This is a lieutenant colonel. This is a full colonel. This is a brigadier general. This is a, what is it, a lieutenant general, a major general, and then we have a full general. And by this time, you can no longer see what it is. Your mind cannot process this. We are not barcode readers. So how is this solved? Well, by breaking it down in a way that this bar summarizes 3 stars, and this circle, this oak loaf image summarizes 6 stars, and so the top one is broken down so that you never get more than 3. And the same was done in the Roman numerical system. It's always broken down that your eyes are not forced to count more than 3 identical objects. So basically we have tunnel vision. We see reality through a periscope. And why am I giving you this image? Because in modern Arabic script design, where Arabic heavily depends on identical, you get repetitions of the same shape that are, let's say, inhuman. So now back to where I was going. Linguistic concepts are based on observation. That's an idea in linguistics. So the be represents identical, and in transliteration I use a capital B. And I'm showing you on top how script grammar works in manuscripts, how typography traditionally tries to reproduce it, and how modern software is written without even suspecting that they are missing a major point. So 1 tentacle, 2 tentacles already require a special initial form, which is not on the radar of the designers of these structures. Then you get 3 tentacles. There is a rule that you have never 3 identical tentacles. That's probably because of the confusion with the scene. Typography follows this. Now there is an interesting thing. 4 tentacles create already a special shape, and this is not possible with metal typography, because if you would implement this rule, your number of sorts in a metal type case would explode. There is, again, if you have 2 denticles in front of a raised denticle, and the denticle is raised because of a rule, you get a special shape. Vertical elongation is done as minimal as possible. So then you get, by raising it, it is no longer counted as a denticle. The rule then applies that if 2 denticles are caught between 2 non-denticles, it gets this miniature U shape. The non-denticles could be calves, paws, lambs, doesn't matter. And the extension of a final be counts as an extra non-denticle. So what you end up is actually very mathematical. It is very regular, and this is why all the calligraphers and the copyists follow the system practically without exception. And you see what happens at the bottom, it becomes the illegible, inhumane structure. Our minds are not built for dealing with this. And the other rule was be economical with the vertical extension and don't do 3 when you can do 2. So in the meantime, I have now escalated my example to 8 consecutive denticles, which raised the question, Mr. Milo, why are you confronting us with absurdities? There is no Arabic word that has 8 letters be. And then, can you prove it? So I said, yes, I can prove it. Be tathbit, or maybe be tathbitain, or be tathbitaina, with my 2 instances of proof. Here you have 8 of them in a sequence. That is not difficult at all, because this denticle has so many different functions that it happens all the time. So this is basic shaping, but if Arabic has something extra. It has extended shaping. You can change some letters, or you can elongate letters. For instance, I can horizontally elongate one of these letters, which in this case does not change the pattern of vertical elongation, but if I elongate another one, you can see that it pushes around the decision which one to raise. So this is something that is not on the radar of anyone in the computing industry, but if you do not catch this, you will never get a realistic computer model of the Naskh script system. So it's another example. This, by the way, all these images are a computer program, so it can be done. And how do you find this? Well, one way is identifying a passage in the Quran that has a great concentration of examples. That is just ergonomic. Now you go to the library, pull out all the Naskh Qurans in the Ottoman tradition, open them on the same page, and look at them. Like this is in transliteration. You see in bold how many of these tentacles are there. Some words are repeated. So it's Surah 40, Ayah 11. And here's the real thing. This is probably by the same calligraphy. It's very hard to spot the differences. You see how similar this is, but it's not the same. And one of the mechanisms of, one of the extra extended features of Arabic script is applied. You can elongate the final form, you can elongate initial forms, or sometimes some letters have simply alternative scenarios. So here's another Quran. The top one is the reference. Now they used a different form for the kaf. And here's a different form for the ra. These are all legitimate changes in the script and within the domain of script grammar of Naskh. And here you see a different way of elongating in front of a ra. Everything here is completely legitimate, regular Naskh, taken from a corpus of tens of thousands Ottoman Naskh Qurans. And you can also go back to the Persian Naskh tradition, and you can see it already start in the Ibn Bawab structures. They all follow this kind of rules. And now I'm focusing on the word ahyaytana. I'm enlarging it in our own computer model. Ahyaytana again. And now compare. Remember the vertical elongation. It sits in a different position because the top one has an elongation and the bottom one doesn't. So now you see in an actual manuscript why we have these rules. This is an observation of reality. And that is why the computer model looks realistic, even if you don't really understand why. So to get there, we use an idea from linguistics. Try to prove your case by eliminating all noise. Now, this fantastic page of Ottoman-style Nasr, I think this is actually Iranian, by accident has two examples of the same expression because the calligrapher made an error. So he writes, قالوا ربنا أمتنا اثنتين فاعترفنا بذنوبنا, which is not what he should have written. So he crosses it out, and then he continues, وأحييتنا اثنتين فاعترفنا بذنوبنا, the second time, فهل إلى خروج. Now, it's an error in the text, but it is not an error in the calligraphy or in the script grammar. By the way, there is another error, in case you didn't notice. أحييتنا, at the bottom line, misses one denticle. You see dots for two yes and dots for a te and for a noon, but you cannot find 4 denticles. There are only 3. But the way he shapes it is completely correct. So he omits one, but still he follows the rules for doing it with 3. But now going back to this one, so I'm isolating it, lifting it out of the context, and the other one. Our computer model can actually reproduce these precisely because we have caught these rules and we can make the same shapes. Even the crossing out can be done because you can cross out in software. Now, the real operative difference is only this dara. There's another difference, which is the elongation of in front of the alif, but that's the other mechanism. There is alternation and elongation. So these are actually, applying this extended script grammar creates the calligraphic effects. And contrastive analysis is another way of finding rules by putting the same instances of the same text against each other and see how they are different. And I looked up a word with 5 denticles, which I found in Surah 12, Ayah 15. This is what it looks like in a modern font, but this is what it looks like in reality. So, I could even reproduce it. The rotating of the dots, everything, it's there. And here's another one. I caught it, and a couple more from different manuscripts. You can repeat this endlessly, but at a certain point, you have the rules. So, this is, every one of them is a valid instance of the Nasr script system. And every one of them is different. So they are the same, and they are different. And they all represent the phrase, لَتُنَبِّئَنَّهُمْ. To organize these observations, I use another concept from linguistics, competence versus performance. And to show you what I'm driving at is this. There was a calligraphy exhibition by IRSİKA, the institute in Istanbul, which also strives to preserve the artistic legacy of Islam. I compare it with Western music. If I have here a Mozart sonata, da-da-da-da-dum, da-da-da-da-dum, da-da-da-dum, it's a famous piece of music. Every piano player can produce a performance of this piece that is a unique artwork without changing a single note as Mozart wrote it, by applying dynamism in strength, in timing. And here you see the exact equivalent, that this is a winning piece in the contest, and the exact same text with the exact same script grammar rules for the Nasr script produces a completely different artwork. And here's another one. And anyone who is familiar with Nasr would agree that all of them are Nasr. And actually, the people who, the judges also agreed every one of them is valid Nasr. Now, back to performance and competence. Competence is, in linguistics, what all the speakers of the same language share. And performance is the individual variation. And this applies directly on script study. So, on the horizontal line, you see from this particular passage the relevant words, how one calligrapher, I touch, performs this rule. And if you then look vertically, you get the competence, what they share. And you can also see that there are sometimes considerable differences, like the word fa'atarafna. But then we can go in there and explain the difference. But basically, this is what we caught, this is how we frame it, and the point is that the European Orientalists or Arabists never paid attention to this. The top line is taken from the most widely used reference Quran, the Flügel Quran in the 19th century. It reduces every single denticle to the exact same shape. And in that tradition, modern computer fonts, the most widely used computer fonts, do exactly the same thing. Whereas in the Middle Eastern, Ottoman, Persian tradition, you will not find either Nasr or Roca or Nastaliq where you do this. They all keep dissimulating them to make the script humane. So here you see the relevant elements of this study. And now I have enlarged the table with more examples and even more. And at the bottom line, you see the resulting algorithm. The algorithm is the result of inventorizing all these differences, isolating the operative differences, and building that into software. So, for instance, the actual shapes, by the way, of this Decotype font were taken from the handwriting of Hashim Muhammad al-Khattat al-Baghdadi. But he never wrote the billions of words that we can generate with it. So we gleaned a system from more manuscripts, but we always shaped them the way we think he would shape them. And one of the things we found that if two denticles are caught between two non-denticles, they take this little U form. And the final form of a be counts also as an extra letter, and therefore it gets the same U form. So this is just one of these rules. And interestingly, I found only one typographer who spotted this. So you don't find this anywhere in typography. I recently gave this presentation at a university in Belgium where there was a Persian student who in 5 minutes was able to find a Persian typeface that had this also. In other words, if you are a Persian that lives in the world where Nasr and Nastaliq are normal, you know these things. And this is our computer model. Another thing is elongation. You cannot elongate every letter, there are constraints, but they are never straight lines. And if a group of denticles is affected by elongation, it pushes around the other shapes in a very regular way, I should say. The colors blue and green, if you can discern them, show you that what looks incredibly difficult is actually a Lego block system of very simple elements. It's not rocket technology. And people either internalized this by repeating or knew the rules explicitly, again, for computer programming, you need to know the rules explicitly. And that's why we can roll out hundreds of theoretical realizations of these words. That is a computer model of Arabic script. So the result is script modeling, and this is actually the computer model. This is used for a typesetting system that we are developing for Royal Braille Publishers in Leiden, one of the oldest Arabic printing operations in Europe. And it gives you a control panel where you can set values for the behavior of text with sliding controls. So I'm changing to a demo set, which immediately changes the appearance of the script. In the same way you see the manuscripts vary. And what did I do? I changed the use of the alternative ra, not all of them alternative, but with a percentage. I changed the shape of aleph. I changed, you see, I can give percentages, and now you see in color where the changes happen. Elongation, this is an interesting thing. You see the elongations stretch all the way under the next word. I don't think that any computer technology can handle this. It's called swash, final elongation. And we do not elongate everyone. The ones that are candidates that stay dormant are gray, because it's not 100%. And the degree of overlap I can influence by the spacing control, which can go horizontal, but it can also go vertical. And now all of a sudden these overlaps have disappeared. So these are all observations from the manuscript tradition, creating a completely new approach to script technology. So I'm giving some more examples. So you see this, the image is changing, and what we're really producing is a small text file that is read by a computer program. So the elongation, rotation, if you like that, you can even add the little alamat al-ihmal. The characters that have no dots can be marked for having no dots explicitly. And you can use that as an ornament or as a legal requirement to make sure that nobody tampers with the text. This is all written automatically in a little file. If this file is attached to a whole book or just a few paragraphs, those paragraphs will behave in precisely the way that I've created with this preset. And it's not just NASP. The testing ground for script technology is the Nastaliq script. Elongations are, there is an element of variation, alternation. Elongation is actually impossible with conventional technology. Here you see we have elongation in various degrees of length. We can change the whole appearance of the text by loosening it up. This is all what script modeling implies. The next step is text. A nice example is a Quran page done by our technology on the left-hand side, or for you on the right hand, and on the left, the same text done with static technology. And as you know, there is in the 604-page format of the Medina Quran a requirement to end every page with a verse number. But sometimes there's too little text, sometimes there's too much text. If you have a static technology, you cannot adjust the text. And you see that we are always able to fill the page by using all these natural features of the script. And now we also have some real hard copy results. For instance, the website that I showed a moment before, so these pages on the right for you are actually a website, but that website is also a printing system, and it has produced a printed Quran. So here you see some close-ups of the actual hard copy. We have two editions, one blue and one golden. And by the way, all the blue books, the Library of Arabic Literature, are all also made with this technology. So that's in a way the vision that we have, but the ambitions are rather wide. And what have we realized? What can be done? Well, the ambitions I showed, it's very aggressive. We want to have it perfect. What has been realized? Well, the Library of Literature, of Arabic Literature, and now I have a very interesting example. Ahmed Faris al-Shajjaq is a 19th century author who was also involved in designing type. And here is a re-edition of the 1855 publication of one of his, this is leg over leg, shak ala shak. And the editors have some comments. They say, we tried to reproduce the book in the same spirit, the unusual graphic features, point handing, but the bottom line is, on the other hand, there is no compelling argument for retaining the original Arabic typeface, which the author himself described as being alien in form. That's interesting. Why does he do that? Because it looked like this. And our edition, this is not the same text, but it's the same spirit, comparing the typographical spirit of the rendition. Because this is his handwriting. Again, a different text, but this is Ahmed Faris al-Shajjaq's personal handwriting, and he was disappointed to see his prose appear in this form. And Miriam, my wife, we have the dream that we have done something that he would have liked. But we're not there yet. What we want is no aircraft, no crashes. We want full parity for Arabic, or for that matter, any non-Latin script with Latin typography. So reliable rendering is one thing. You may be aware of the occurrence of squares in Arabic text. You may be aware of the fact that you can design on your own computer something that looks perfect and then see it appear in print or on a website in a completely different form. You need reliable rendering. And then there is no support for classical Arabic orthography. Texts are actually rewritten to become printable with the constraints of computer technology that it was not really made for Arabic. And if you flip around the whole logic, you need the same kind of understanding of the rules of the script before you have any chance of making optical character recognition that can actually recognize these structures. And the whole idea that you can leave it to artificial intelligence, we had a brief discussion about that. Well, we are, as we sit here, we are organic intelligence, and it took 4 billion years of trial and error before we got at this point where we can still not count more than 3 things. So don't expect artificial intelligence to get there without any clues. You should feed it with as many clues as you can, and we have the clues. So that is an idea of how to move forward with OCR. So this is what remains to be done in a grand overview of the issues in general and a very deep analysis of one particular aspect of Arabic script that really needs treatment, otherwise it won't work. And that's my presentation.
Thank you so much. It was fascinating. So, what I understood from this is that you were sort of highlighting the complexity or maybe the artistic expressions in Arabic script and the limitations in the...
No, I don't call it artistic. If you speak Arabic correctly, nobody would call it artistic. Actually, there's something odd with Arabic. If you look in a bookstore, it has Arabic calligraphy, golden letters in gold, the cosmic script, magical titles about Arabic calligraphy with great respect and sometimes implicit condescendence, because it is not described in a way that you can actually understand it. And listening to Arabic that is simply correct, you don't call that artistic, if you see what I mean. It's simply, this is the way the script works. On the other hand, I call this qawa'id al-khat, script grammar. And to make it look beautiful is fan al-khat. That is the art of script. It sits on top of it.
So what you're saying is, what we see today as artistic is what is the norm of writing. And we've become accustomed to seeing it artistic because we are now accustomed to the limitations given by the technology.
What you see today is, for instance, this image of Al-Marwaya Al-Arabiya, in stark contrast, of course, with the Al-Markaz Al-Malik Faisal. That is calligraphy. It is script grammatically flawless, but it is lifted to a higher level. It's not just ordinary script. That is script adapted to machines that were not able to deal with Arabic. Within these constraints, people are artistic and creative and try to come with the best possible use of that technology, but the result is that. And there are opinions about it. People like it, and I know that Professor Saliba does not like it. And in my position, it was not a matter of liking it or not liking it. We started this project in the 1980s when this was the standard. There was no computer technology and everybody was working with this kind of script. And I was intrigued by the lack of interest by the academic community to understand this aspect of Arabic script. And what I've done tonight is show you that with the normal devices of academic thinking, you can produce an accurate model of that kind of script. I'm not even going into the discussion whether you like it or you don't like it, but this is the result if you look at 5 centuries of Ottoman Nasr. And the other one, the Roca, is the result if you look at Roca script. That's what you get.
So tomorrow I think we'll be discussing the challenges, but what if somebody pushes back and says, what we have conveys the meaning. Why should we care about retaining those small rules?
That is, I would say, a question that I leave to the Middle Eastern Arabic scripted world. If you don't like it, I have no voice here. The only thing is that what we do de facto gives people the freedom of choice. At this moment, even if you like the way we produce it, you don't have the choice to get it because it's not available. That may be the only answer that I can give.
Okay, so I'll leave it. إذا في أحد عنده أسئلة تفضلوا. الشاب اللي هنا. أيوه. تفضل. أي تفضل لو توقف في مايكات. بس أستاذ مثنى لحظة ما شفتك في البداية أوكي بعدين بس معذرة ثانية
السلام عليكم.
The voices are a bit distorted. It's sometimes hard to.
لا it's very clear.
أولاً حبيت أشكر الأستاذ توماس على المحاضرة الحلوة اللطيفة والجميلة، وعلى الجهد المبذول في بهذا. أنا قدامي حقيقة أنا مثنى العبيدي كخبير بالخط وخطاط. ما أدري الدكتور يفهم العربية صح؟ وكتبت مصحف كامل أو مصحفين، مصحف الفيصل كتبناه بخط الثلث والنسخ، وكتبت مصحف المملكة الأردنية الهاشمية الآن في طباعة في إسطنبول بخط النسخ. حقيقة أنا عندي أنا الشيء اللي يجب أن أقوله، أنا لم أرى فونت طباعي بخط النسخ من وجهة نظري الفنية هو جميل إلا ما رأيته اليوم. الاستخدام للخط جميل جدا، لأنه لا وجود لفونت يتعامل مع خط النسخ إلا بطريقة مستوية كمبيوترية، فتحسه خالي من أي روح للفن الخط. اللي شفته اليوم هو حقيقة فونت جميل قريب جدا على النسخ اللي كنا نشوفه بالمخطوطات الموروثة عبر مئات السنين. فنشكرك على الجهد هذا الكبير، وأنا أدرك أنه هذا ليس بالهين أن تصلون لهذه المرحلة. هاي أول نقطة. النقطة الثانية، حبيت بعض الإضاءات إذا يسمحوا لي الأخوة، يعني قد تأخذ بعض الوقت لأنه حددت نقاط هامة. أول مسألة تحديدا بخط النسخ، أول من وضع قواعد بشكل اللي شفناه بالنماذج اللي حضرتك قدمتها من كراس شوقي وكراس مصطفى عزت وكراس حليم يازجي رحمة الله عليهم، هذا النمط بتدريس خط النسخ هو ابتكره ياقوت المستعصمي المتوفى سنة 1298. هو وضع حقيقة طريقة لتعلم خط النسخ حتى الناس تستطيع أن تكتب بطريقة واضحة وقابل للقراءة أو لكتابة مصاحف مع كل إشكاليات الرسم المصحفي بطريقة جميلة وصحيحة. لذلك أول من اصطلح مصطلح الدرج الخطي هو ياقوت، وبعدين كل المدرسة العثمانية ابتداء من الشيخ حمد الله الأماسي ومرورا بالحافظ عثمان إلى آخر الأسماء الكبيرة اللي موجودة، هي تأثرت بطريقة ياقوت بهذه الكراسة اللي يضعون الحروف الأبجدية ويضعون لها مقاسات، وسموها بالدرج لسبب أنه يأخذون الحرف الأول ويأخذون الحرف النهائي، فيأخذون يسمى بدرج الجيم، فيتصل الجيم مع الألف، الجيم مع الجيم، الجيم مع الباء، وهكذا إلى حد الجيم مع الياء، ويضع حرف الباء مع كل اتصالات، ويضع كل الحروف الأبجدية. الحقيقة فيما يتعلق بدرج اللام المفقود اللي حضرتك قلت طلعت نموذج لشوقي ولمصطفى عزت، في الحقيقة على مدار 500 عام من الكراريس الخطية التي شرحت الخط العربي لا وجود لدرج اللام إلا ضمنه شخص اسمه محمود جلال الدين من أساتذة الخط في القرن الثامن عشر، بدايات القرن الثامن عشر، كتب درج للام، كتب كل اشتقاقات حروف اللام، فيمكن الرجوع إلى بأخذ هذه الاشتقاق كاملة، وكتبها بطريقة مفرطة الجمال. وقبل من وضع درج اللام وضعه ياقوت رحمة الله عليه، وضع درج اللام في الكراريس الخطية، بس الأتراك اللي بعده لم يضعون درج اللام، ما معروف السبب شنو. أنا حقيقة أنا سويت عندي مشروع كبير كراس سميته الموازين الذهبية للحروف العربية، جمعت كل المفردات الناقصة بالكراريس الخطية اللي هي وين مفردة ناقص، هل هناك احتمال لم يضعوه، فوجدت حقيقة 287 مفردة ناقصة من خط الثلث و180 مفردة ناقصة من خط النسخ. الكراريس هذه عادة كانوا يكتبوها بخط الثلث والنسخ، فالمفردات الناقصة سويت زي لستة ما هي الاتصالات الغير موجودة، فلقيت عدد كبير جدا من الاتصالات غير موجود، فضمنتها في كراس الموازين الذهبية. وبعدين الفكرة الرئيسية بالكراسة اللي حضرتك كنتوا دختوا فيها كثيرا هي مسألة الحروف الوسطى بالكراريس. لا توجد كراس في تاريخ الخط العربي من ياقوت إلى يومنا هذا وضع قواعد ثابتة لكل اتصالات الحروف الوسطى، وهذا الشيء اللي خلاني أكتب درج كامل جديد من الحروف، كل اتصالات الحروف الاحتماليات الحروف الوسطى، فتحل كل هاي الإشكاليات حقيقة. لأنه مسألة السنة الوسطى المرتفعة وحلول المد هي مسألة متواترة بين الخطاطين، ولكن الفكرة الرئيسية أنه يعني جهودكم تقيم جدا، لأنه لا وجود لداتا تقدرون تسووا لها إدخال فيما يتعلق بالحروف الوسطى وتفاصيل كل، يعني العينات الوسطى كيف شكلها، الباءات الوسطى ما هي أنواعها، الجيمات الوسطى ما هي أنواعها، كيف يتعلق الجيم الوسطي. لذلك كلمة شفناها اللي بها لخلال أو فيها لام خاء لام أو اتصالين، هذا الاتصال اللي ماخذيه من هاشم، هناك 3 احتمالات أخرى ممكن وضعها وتكون أسهل بالقراءة وتكون أسهل بالتحريك. لأنه إذا ردنا نكتب نص قرآني، أي قارئ للقرآن عندما تتعلق عفوا
لا تفضل، بس علشان
الوقت
ايوه، لا وبعض التفاصيل التقنيه يمكن افضل 1 to 1 يعني بينكم. ايوه
اوكي، فحبيت بس اوضح انه درج اللام موجود عند محمود جلال الدين وموجود عند ياقوت، وممكن الرجوع لهم راح يساعدكم كثيرا بهاي المساله. النقطه الثانيه، كراسه هاشم سيدي، هاشم البغدادي رحمه الله عليه، المفردات الذي وضعها هاشم تماما، هذه الكراسه هو نقل كراس محمد عزت، هذه الاتصالات هي لمحمد عزت تماما، وطريقه الرسم هاي هي ليست الطريقه المعهوده بالاتصالات، لانه هو اخذ الكلمات ما هي اشكال الكاف فقط، اخذ فد احتمالين ما هي اشكال السين، فهو نقل تماما ما وضعه محمد عزت رحمه الله بكراسته ونقلها تماما. المساله
شو السؤال؟
أنا ما
هذا
عندي سؤال، أنا حبيت
ملاحظات، ولكن شو من فيما يخص هذا المحاضرة
أنا ما عندي سؤال، أنا بس حبيت أسلط الضوء على بعض النقاط التي قد تساعد بمشروعكم فيما يتعلق بالحروف الوسطى وفيما يتعلق بالرجوع لمرجعيات فنية للاتصالات سيدي. هذا بس فقط اللي حبيت أحكيه. نقطة سيدي، أنا شفت بعض الأخطاء من الجانب الرسم الفني، أشكال الجيم وأشكال العينات عند أخذها من الاتصالات، يعني في حالة مثل كلمة شكرا جزيلا.
إذا في سؤال أو في ملاحظة محددة، إذا في مداخلات أو إضافات مثل ما تفضلت على المشروع، ممكن يعني ترجعوا تتناقشوا مع بعض.
أنا ما عندي أسئلة، حبيت أشكر أولا وحبيت بس أوضح بعض الاستيضاحات هذه الاستنارات، وشكرا للدكتور، شكرا جزيلا.
شكرا لك، شكرا أستاذ مثنى. الدكتور تفضل بعدين.
شكرا لك توم. أنا اسمي أحمد منصور، أنا مدير مركز دراسات الخطوط والنقوش في مكتبة الإسكندرية. طبعا توم هو صديق عزيز وبقالنا سنوات طويلة أصدقاء ومتواصلين في المعرفة فيما يخص مشروعاته. يعني سريعا جدا، تطور شكل الحرف عامة العربي من النقش إلى العصر الرقمي هو جزء من الهوية، والعرب أنفسهم أنتجوا تطور شكل الحرف بدليل استخدامه في مجموعة من اللغات. ومع دخول العرب في عصر الطباعة وتحديدا الطباعة الميكانيكية، في أول الأمر استوردوا أشكال الحروف من أوروبا وخصوصا من هولندا أو من فرنسا، ثم أنتجوا الحروف الميكانيكية الخاصة بهم طبعا لقواعد الخط العربي. وزي ما احنا عارفين، زي ما ظهرت المطابع في لبنان وفي سوريا ومطبعة بولاء اللي موجودة في مصر، وتم تطوير الخط الأميري اللي انت اشتغلت عليه، وثم ظهور مصحف الملك فؤاد واستخدام الخط الطباعي اللي مصمم على قواعد الخط العربي، والخطاط محمد جعفر طبعا مشهور في هذا الأمر. لذلك أنا أوصيك يعني في مرحلة لاحقة، أو ده استفساري أو ده سؤالي، هل سوف تضمن الحروف الطباعية التي ظهرت في عصر الطباعة الميكانيكية في الكتب في مشروعك، أم سوف تعتمد فقط على المخطوطات، خط النسخ الموجود في المخطوطات، أم سوف تدرج الخطوط الطباعية التي استخدمت في طباعة الكتب، وخاصة الكتب التي طبعت في على سبيل المثال مطبعة بولاء أو في المطابع الأخرى. التوصية الأخيرة، لنا أوصي بإدراج دراسة شكل الحرف العربي من خلال دراسة تاريخ الطباعة العربية كجزء من المروية العربية وجزء من الهوية العربية. شكرا.
المحاولة
I repeat the question.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, I'm going to say it in English. Are you going to include the typographic letters that were used in the early printed books in your project, or you are going to use only the letters that were used in the manuscripts?
Yes. What we are trying to do is to look at the original manuscripts, and there are millions of them. And there are also enormous varieties of styles. So we zoom in on a well-defined corpus. And therefore we state up front, everything we say about Naskh is essentially based on observations in Ottoman mushafs. So we're not going in all directions, because that becomes a qamus and there is a rule system because people can read them. But in order to define the rules for a computer program that does not make errors against a particular variety of Arabic script, you have to choose a corpus, and the corpus is Ottoman because it's so well documented and because it sits at the basis of modern Middle Eastern typography. And then I also walked into Rocca and Nastaliq, and both of them are very well defined and actually much better described rule systems. The problem with Naskh is that there is the word Qawaid al-Khat in Arabic, the rules of script, but there is no publication that summarizes all the rules that are necessary to create a program that can write any imaginable Arabic word without errors. And we may have failed, but so far in our Naskh, we are pretty accurate. So we do not, and also we are not imposing this for any use. It's just a recording. It's a documentation of a system. And the underlying technology that we make to handle this can be used for new and other designs. So you're looking essentially at a technological approach to Arabic script that has proven to handle Naskh, Rocca, and Nastaliq. And more work needs to be done. And the way of thinking to get these results, I would argue, can also be reversed in order to improve the chances of getting reliable optical character recognition.
السلام عليكم. أنا دكتور أيمن الدكروري، مدير مكتبة عفت والمتحف الثقافي، وأستاذ مساعد اللغة العربية سابقا في الجامعة الأمريكية بالقاهرة، وحاليا أستاذ مساعد اللغة العربية في جامعة عفت. كنا مؤخرا في جامعة عفت قمنا بمشروع نلنا عليه جائزة جدة للإبداع، وكان في الحقيقة المشروع كان بعنوان بنك اللغة العربية. نعم، المشروع كان بعنوان بنك اللغة العربية، وفي الحقيقة كان في فريق عمل قام في جامعة عفت بمجهودات مضنية، وكان فريق العمل في الحقيقة عبارة عن مجموعة من الخبراء في مجالات عدة، منها خبراء في المكتبات وخبراء في علم اللغة العربية وخبراء أيضا في الكوربس لينجويستكس. كان طبعا الحقيقة احنا قمنا في هذا المشروع بعمل كوربس للمقالات العلمية المنشورة في العلوم الإنسانية والاجتماعية، ولم يكن لنا الحظ في الحصول على المقالات المنشورة في صيغة صور PDF، فقط حصلنا على المقالات التي كانت منشورة في شكل machine readable text mainly Word format and HTML web pages، لأننا لم نجد في الحقيقة أي سوفت وير يمكنه التعامل مع الصور والمحارف العربية. كل ما هو موجود هي محاولات تجارية بتحتمل كثير من الأخطاء في الأوتبوت حقتها هي. فسؤالي لحضرتك يعني متى سنرى سوفت وير يمكنه التعامل مع المحارف العربية بجودة ودقة تحاكي الدقة والجودة التي نراها في تعامل البرمجيات مع اللغات المكتوبة بالحروف اللاتينية زي اللغة الإنجليزية. هذا سؤال أو هذا شق من السؤال. هناك شق آخر، وأنا كنت من المستمتعين اليوم بمحاضرة أستاذنا الدكتور جورج صليبة عن أهمية المخطوطات العربية ودورها في نقل المعرفة والعلوم العربية إلى الغرب ومن الغرب أيضا. وطبعا يعني المخطوطات والخطوط التي كانت تكتب بها في القديم أو في القدم كانت تكتب بأشكال طبعا لم نعهدها أو عهدناها في السابق، ولكن هي غير مستخدمة الآن. هل يمكن أن يوجد في الوقت القريب أو في المستقبل القريب أداة أو سوفت وير يمكنه التعامل مع المحارف العربية التي استخدمت في المخطوطات في العصور السابقة، وبالتالي يمكننا أن نحدث نوع من التكامل ما بين الكوديكولوجي أو علم المخطوطات والمعرفة التي تحملها المخطوطات العربية وبين البرمجيات والتكنولوجيا التي تشرفون عليها؟ وشكرا.
Yeah, this is a very important issue. The question is, how does this help the dealing with manuscripts, also their encoding and their rendering on the internet, on web pages, in a way that is realistic? And I think this should be the focus of a collaboration with the KF CRIS, because we have, for letters, a reliable system which is called Unicode. It's reliable because the sender and the receiver get the same number. But that's all. What's done with these numbers for Arabic can be greatly improved without damaging the general infrastructure. And this is where we need to find collaboration and building expertise. So, for instance, I consider it a conceptual error to add the dot, the tanqid, to the base letter. For the simple reason that in manuscripts they were often omitted, and publishers today are forced to read the text intelligently and add dots where they were not there. Let me give you one example. If you have the expression "indallahi" without dots, it looks exactly the same as Abdallah. And if you are the editor of a manuscript, you can erroneously read "indallah" where the writer actually meant Abdullah. This is erased from the memory of mankind once the book is published. By Brill, for instance, it becomes the standard edition of a manuscript with discrete, unnoticeable changes in the text that are forced by the encoding that adds dots where there were none. So this is just an example, but that is the invisible part of text. So tonight it was about form, and form, there is a massive manuscript edition of Arabic, like there is a massive manuscript edition of Latin and Greek text. The technology is much more faithful in dealing with Latin and Greek text than in dealing with Arabic text. And that's why I gave the airline example. On top of that, the way the encoding is defined, is used at this moment, works against the Arabic written civilization, because it erases the past. You're forced to add information to texts that was not there, and by doing so you make it impossible for future scholars to really understand what was in the text. Do you agree?
Excellent.
By the way, tomorrow I want to do a workshop about the invisible, the encoding aspect, because these are two sides of the same coin. the way text is encoded at the moment is to make sure that it prints in a legible way. That's why the dots are added, and that's why there are many invisible constructions that make it difficult to search. This actually already works against search in Latin script. A great example is the word efficient, where FFI in a very nice font is one ligature, where the dot is suggested by the shape of the last F. It has a different number. If you search for the word efficient in a nicely looking piece of PDF, you won't find it because there is a mismatch. Now, these are all flaws wider than just Arabic that need to be addressed, because everything civilizational is now forced to use this technology. And the technology is essentially a military communications protocol that has grown completely out of proportions.
Thank you so much. Ben, تفضل. مايك.
السلام عليكم. شكرا دكتور توم على هذا العمل الجليل والمحاضرة الجميلة، استمتعنا جدا. شكرا دكتور عبد الله، وأذن لي أن تترجم هذا السؤال سريعا، وهو حول نسبة، إذا كان لديكم نسبة أو إحصاءات حول استخدام خطوط ديكوتايب في مايكروسوفت، برامج أوفيس، أو في مواقع الإنترنت بشكل عام، أو في الطباعة. فهل لديكم أي إحصاءات حول استخدام هذا الخط؟ شكرا.
Yeah, so his question is a new lecture because it will be, it's important, about, I mean, it's also part maybe of tomorrow's discussion, but if you can go open type, deco type, distinction.
Well, we have Adobe InDesign, where we have, until recently we had Tasmim, and Tasmim is decotype technology inside a program that was designed to be stable between Windows and Apple machines. Remember the example where one of the scholars from the Library of Alexandria presented his Windows show on an Apple and saw it collapse. In typography, there was a high business case, an important business case, to make sure that people could prepare their manuscripts for typesetting on a Windows machine and have it printed on an Apple. And that is why the font technology sits inside the InDesign program. Normally, font technology sits in the operating system. So if you hand a text from an Apple operating system to a Windows operating system, you run incredible risks of losing all kinds of details. By handing it from InDesign on an Apple to InDesign on a Mac, you don't have that risk because they are containers and they are identical. With this architecture and with the help of a French company, we were able to build our machine inside InDesign so that it was stable on both platforms. This is one, hopefully, a clear technological case. Now we have the Mus'haf Muscat, where we put the, let's say, essentially the 1924 Cairo Quran text on the internet with a urgent requirement that it should never misrepresent anywhere. Now we have a big problem because you look at a website either with an Apple or with a Microsoft machine, and most websites are not reliable. And with this Quran text, we could not have this. What we did is we moved the font technology module to the cloud. So the information, the text information is shaped on the cloud and then sent with shapes to all the receiving stations. And you can open Mus'haf Muscat on any device without seeing any change in the text. And this makes this particular program or this technology unique. The long answer, and the best answer to your question is, at some moment in time, the industry should integrate our type of technology in their operating systems so that everybody has it. This should be an important concern for KF Chris, to play a role in stabilizing technology. Because at this moment, for Arabic, it is really not stable.
Yeah, well, I think this takes us back to what Muthanna mentioned about the absence of any naskh in the digital format. When he was saying that naskh, the first time he saw naskh in this quality was what he saw now, because the existing technology doesn't provide that kind of quality. So,
well, actually, the system technologically, it's very feasible.
no, it's feasible, but the existing
We
technology
actually had a
doesn't.
prototype with Apple where it worked on all.
I'm not talking about yours. I'm talking about Windows and Apple and
Talking about?
The existing industry doesn't provide it.
They don't do it because they don't see a business
Yeah.
case, they don't hear complaints, and they are confident that what with they have, they capture the Arab market. There is no need to support this kind of quality.
Okay.
That's how it's argued. And we are a very small company. You could actually better call it a guerrilla that keeps working with a focus on quality rather than on huge markets. But we can show results that are clearly done with the same basic technologies that prove that it can be done.
And tomorrow there'll be more. يعني بكره حيكون في نقاش اكثر حقيقه عن الخلفيه وبعض التحديات التقنيه. يعني اليوم كان استعراض للرؤيه والامكانات الموجوده، وغدا عن بعض التحديات التقنيه الواقعه وبعض الخلل التقني الموجود في منظومه الخط العربي المرقم. إذا هناك اي ملاحظات او اسئله اضافيه تفضل.
Shukran. Small question. What's your plan B if those international companies you cannot convince them, or they think what they have already is enough, and you want this to be popular? What's your plan B? Are you gonna to sell it to the cultural center? I know it's your dream. It's become very easy and available to everyone. But what if not? What you plan to do?
Your question is, what if the industry shrugs their shoulders and ignores it? Well, we have proven that we don't need them. The Muscat technology, it works without asking support or permission or cooperation from anybody. We can do it by overruling the font technology of the operating system by font technology from the cloud. That's one strategy. Then it works on all browsers. And alternatively, we have the possibility to build these plug-in or external additions like we made for InDesign. We can theoretically build them anywhere. It's just a matter of getting the business case for it, and that's characteristically not my department. I am thinking in the terms of what is the manuscript edition, how can we treat it with dignity using existing technology. How to build that into a successful business is a completely different profession. But we have people like that in our team.
Well, في أحد؟ تفضلي.
Good evening, everyone. Dr. Thomas, thank you for the amazing information that I had tonight. My question is connected to the last question, actually, but who's responsible to force these companies, or not to force them, at least to affect them, that they use your software or the technology? Because you have it, and as Arabs, we want it. And we're a lot, we're not like a minority in this world. And not just Arabs, Muslims also using the Arabic language. So who can? Is it like the governments or institutions like you supposed to work more, or we supposed to have more institutions like you and more researchers who are working in this so we can enforce it to companies like Windows, Apple, and everyone else?
Well, I think that you're almost hitting the nail on this is it. Everything that has to do with learning, civilization, art, goes through a very small group of people who manage huge business concerns that provide the infrastructure. So we are forced to abandon all the traditional devices of civilization and move into a digital abstraction. But the green light on-off is given by people who are not basically concerned with these, with this aspect of life. Their concern is, how do we get a big company in the market, and how do we make it grow? That's all. That's it, and they're very good at that. And I have no simple answer to change this mechanism. And at the same time, I think people are listening and understanding what I'm saying. It will not come from, there is no market mechanism that creates the conditions for Arabic or script culture. The last 40 years, I think, have proven that, because in 40 years we have Arabic script, but on critical functionality, it's still unreliable, and it can never go in the direction of authentic, honest rendering of what is a millennium and a half of Arabic script. You have to change the script in order to make it work on the modern machines. I think that's what we're talking about. But it is not, technically this is not necessary. Technically it's perfectly possible, as I've argued, to serve this culture with correct solutions.
Well, thank you. This is, it's a very nice closing question. Do you have anyone else? But yeah, I think it was an important question to close with and an important answer. And tomorrow there'll be more elaboration on what we don't see in terms of the challenges that the current technology provides. شكرا لكم جميعا على انصاتكم وحضوركم، نراكم. لا تنسوا بكره يعني غدا في جامعة الفيصل محاضرة للبروفيسور جورج صليبة، ولمن يعني ربما يكون هناك نقاش آخر مع البروفيسور توماس لمن يتابع معه. شكرا، تصبحون على خير. Thank you.